Welcome to the Writer's Journey podcast. I'm Michael Laron, a science fiction and fantasy author on a journey to go from nobody to bestseller, and I'm documenting every step of the way. Tune in every week as I pull back the curtain on my writing life and how I'm building a writing career while working a full-time job, raising a family, and attending law school classes in the evenings. You can find show notes for this week's episode, a free starter library of my fiction, and much more at michaellaron.com. Enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome to episode 54. 54 episodes in, and it's something really great has happened here in Iowa. So we have had a historic winter. There's just been a lot of snowfall in Iowa compared to years before. And really, Iowa, a lot of people think Iowa has bad winters, but in the past 10 years or so, the winters actually haven't been that bad. But the winters here this year was awful. It has actually warmed up here. It's been the second or third really nice day. Like, I actually just went for a walk today, and I'm not normal. I like to go for walks, but I was just like, you know what? It's really sunny outside, and the grass is starting to turn green. I'm just going to go on a walk. And so while I was walking, I was actually thinking about what I was going to talk about on this podcast. And so I wanted to give an update on my house situation. So we actually found three places. We found one place, I think it was like a condo, and there's a university here in Des Moines, a medical university, and there's a bunch of condos around it. And so my wife and I were like, well, we can get this condo cheap, then it kind of serves all of our needs, and then, you know, we can rent it out to medical students and things like that. And so lo and behold, it didn't work out. And the day after we found out that our offer was declined, it turns out that the medical university shut down. I should say shut down. I'm being too dramatic. They're actually moving out to another part of Des Moines, rendering all of the housing in that area for all the students completely irrelevant. And so my wife and I kind of looked at each other and we're like, wow, did we dodge a bullet? I mean, literally, I'm not kidding. I know sometimes I like to dramatize things. It was literally the day after the seller walked away from our offer that this article came out in the news. And so then we said, you know what? Yeah, we're gonna find a house and we're gonna do it. And so then we found another house that was really nice, and it was in a different area of Des Moines, but it was nice because it was a little close to where we are currently. And that didn't work out because somebody else was faster than us. So that house got snatched up from underneath us, and then we found another house and made an offer on that one, and didn't think that it would be accepted, and it actually was. So we're excited that we can actually move into a new house that's going to be a little bit bigger, not that much bigger, but a little bit bigger. I'll actually have not just a dedicated office, but an actual dedicated YouTube space, which I am, oh my God, I'm so pumped about that. But the nice thing is that it's going to have a smaller lawn. So one of the things that I don't know if I've ever shared on this podcast, but the house I live in, it's not very big, but it's very old. It was built in 1924, and it's in a section of Des Moines where the backyards are huge. I think the backyards are actually twice as big as the actual area of the house, which is just crazy. Like if you look out my backyard, I affectionately call my backyard the national park. It's because it's huge. It takes like almost an hour to mow, and I have a push mower because we're kind of cheap, so we don't want to buy a riding lawnmower. And so you can imagine pushing a push mower and trying to mow something that big. But I like mowing because I can listen to podcasts and I can kind of gather my thoughts. And I'm not going to lie, I do have a little bit of a tummy, and so it's not a bad thing to get some exercise for me a couple times a week. But I think it was just too much lawn, because guys, I got books to write, right? So the lawn on this house is going to be a little bit smaller, so I can spend more time not just mowing, but kind of doing some things around the house to make it look nice. And then I can spend more time writing, which is ultimately the focus of what I'm trying to do here. So we're cautiously optimistic. We've got our inspection here pretty soon. I think it's going to be here early next week. And once we get out of that, and assuming the house passes inspection, which I think it will, we're going to be in a pretty good position, and we won't be homeless, I hope. So that's an update on my housing situation. Shadow Deal is going great. The edits are done. I think I said this last time, but the edits are just absolutely finished, and I'm really, really happy with how the manuscript turned out. It just is, it's exactly what I wanted it to be. And I can't say that honestly of most of the books that I write. I always feel like with some books I finish them and I feel like I fell just short of what I wanted to accomplish with this in terms of either how it was written or maybe how a character was portrayed on the page. But I really do think that I really nailed the vision that I set out to accomplish with Lester Broussard, who's the main character of the story. And so it's called The Good Necromancer. Book 1 is Shadow Deal. It's about a necromancer who uses his powers for good. He has given up necromancy for the longest time because he got into it initially to help save his dead wife from cancer. He tried to make a deal with some spirits and the dead and demons to try to find a cure for his wife, and that backfired on him, and the demon that he made a deal with ended up killing his wife and killing his son and leaving him alone. And so he spent the last 7 years trying to atone for all of his sins, just working crappy jobs and just trying to keep a low profile. And a friend of his shows up one night and is in a lot of trouble, and he has no choice but to resort back to necromancy in order to save her. And so it's in many ways it's kind of a guy going back to his peak, right? And realizing that he is capable of unspeakable evil and choosing not to engage in that, but instead realize that he is capable of unspeakable good, and using something that most people consider heinous and evil, and using it in a way that actually helps people. And so it's the beginning of that story. And so I absolutely love it, and I'm really happy at how it came out. I actually got the cover design ready, so it's not done yet. But I've been back and forth with my cover designer about 5 or 6 times, and we're just about to the finish line, and I'm going to be really happy to unveil that here probably next week. So Shadow Deal's going great, and for those of you who are following along in the course, I released some videos this week. Next week will be a bunch of launch videos. I won't have everything wrapped up with the course next week, but what I'm going to do is I promised that I would only email you through the end of March. I'm going to keep that promise, and so future updates after that point will go on YouTube, and then after everything is wrapped up, there will be a small period where people can still get the course for free, and then at that point I will kind of warn everyone that there's 1 week left or so. There'll be a very clear date, and then the course I'll pull the course down, make some edits based on feedback that some of the students have been in the course have given me, and then I'll slap a price on it, and it will officially be my first informational product, which is cool. Like you guys know, I love building stuff. And so I can't wait to build the next thing. So that is Shadow Deal. And in this episode, I've taken a long time to get to it, but I wanted to talk about an experience that I had earlier this week that really made me think about my writing in a different way. So as many of you know, I work in the insurance industry, and I happen to work in a very boring, not so glamorous job. I think it's exciting, but most people would say it's not very glamorous. It's reading insurance policies and determining what's covered, and trying to come up with creative insurance solutions for agents. See, aren't you already falling asleep? So but part of that job is I've kind of developed a little bit of an expertise on my job of understanding the legal aspect of insurance policies and what they cover. And if you're a body shop or a restaurant, for example, and you're engaging in some sort of an operation, is that operation covered under your insurance policy? And if not, how do you do it? And so I had the opportunity to be a part-time teacher for a nonprofit organization that provides training to insurance agents to help them be better agents and better equip them to have those conversations with some of these commercial customers. And so I did it. It is a time commitment. That's the first thing, and that's one thing I had to recognize when I did it. But the reason I did it was because the professors or the faculty members in this organization, honestly, are some of the best that I've ever seen. I remember going to one of these trainings and just being blown away at how professional and how eloquent and just how smart a lot of these faculty members were, and how passionate they were at just helping people. And so I said, you know what? I want to try this, and not just because I want to be up in front of people. And it wasn't because of that, but it was because the training that this organization gives, it really helps you with physicality in front of a group. It helps you with making sure that you're choosing the right words and all those sorts of things. And I thought that could really help me with my writing and with being up in front of people, as I'm asked to do often as a writer and as somebody who puts themselves out there as kind of knowing a thing or two about how to write. And so one of the things that I've always cherished is any opportunity that I can use that will give me a transferable skill that will help make me a more valuable writer, but not so much just a writer, but more valuable from a business perspective and more valuable from a marketing perspective. And how can that help me connect with people in a way that I wasn't able to connect with them in the past, right? And so sometimes I found in my career that it's often opportunities that you initially think, well, why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. That often lead to those kinds of light bulb moments. And so I had my first course a couple of days ago, and it went really, really well. And it went really, really well because I want to share 3 lessons that I learned about that with you. The first lesson was that I basically, it was my job to be in a classroom for an entire day and basically teaching concepts of legal liability to these agents. And I had to over prepare for this. I mean, you're going to be up in front of people for 6 hours. I mean, you kind of have to know your stuff. And so I was prepared for it. I was probably over prepared for it. And because of that, it went really well. And so one of the things that has taught me is that the importance of practice. Right. So I always talk about practice and how that's an important thing to do as a writer. And I picked that up from Dean Wesley Smith, but that came also from when I was a musician and I had to practice my saxophone every day in order to be competitive with the other saxophone players in jazz band, right? Nobody wanted to be last chair in band. And so that was something that I learned, and learning how to practice public speaking was an important thing for me to get better at as I start to develop more online courses, as I start to do more webinars, as I think about getting better and doubling down on my YouTube channel. Things like that are absolutely essential, and it was helpful practice for me, right? So the second thing that I learned is different ways to interact with students when they have questions, right? So there's a certain protocol to make sure that you answer someone's question adequately or properly, right? And it's simple stuff like, okay, how do you rephrase the question, one, to make sure that you understand what they're saying, but 2, to make sure that they can have the opportunity to clarify what they're saying. And that's one thing I don't think I do enough on my YouTube channel. And one thing I don't think I do enough on this podcast is asking questions or providing a forum for you all to ask me questions on the show. And so I have to think about that and try to figure out what I'm going to do there. And then I think the third thing that I realize is that I just really like being up in front of people. And it's like this weird. It's like this weird contradiction. So I'm on the Myers-Briggs scale, I'm a textbook INTJ. I am extremely introverted, almost to the point where, a few years ago, at social events, I would hide in bathrooms because I was so nervous about the social interactions that I was going to have. Yeah, I was that nervous. I've gotten better at it over the years as I've taken jobs where I've got to be required to be on when I'm in a room, but it's a problem for me. And so it's weird that someone like me would actually enjoy public speaking. Like, I love being behind this microphone, mainly because I can speak to people on my own terms, right? And so being up in front of a group and being able to share things that I've learned and that I'm passionate about, it's just something that I have to do more of and that I have to double down on because I think there's always these exercises when people ask you, when you want to be happy and what the definition of happiness is. Imagine the time you were the most happy, right? And I think the times where I've been the most happy as a writer haven't necessarily been when I've been writing a book, but it's been when I've been in front of people sharing the things that I've learned, whether it be right or wrong or whatever. And so I thought that was an important lesson, just a reflection for me, and something I invite all of you to think about as you're listening to this show. I imagine that many of you are writers, but I also imagine that many of you are not. And I think it's often a difficult question to ask yourself to know, what is it that makes you happy? What is it that you could see yourself doing for the rest of your life and never get tired of waking up and having to do it? And public speaking is something I don't think I would ever get tired of. Podcasting, I don't think I would ever get tired of. I have gotten tired of certain genres in terms of writing. That's why I'm always changing things up and doing things different. And there is a major satisfaction that I have when I finish a book and publish it for the first time. But yeah, it's just, I like being around people. I'm an introvert, but I like being around people. It's really weird. Like, I'm introverted, but yet I'm outgoing at the same time. Like, it's just weird. So anyway, teaching this course really helped me realize that and realize the impression that I give other people when I meet them for the first time and the things that they say about what I do. And it also helps me realize some of the weaknesses of my personality type and how I need to learn how to speak to people on their level. Right? So not everybody is as analytical and enjoys digging into things as much as I do. And so when I'm doing this podcast, for example, I have to remember that. I have to remember to talk to try to be personable and talk about my own life, right? And talk about things that are going to interest not just people that are of my personality type, right? So I just invite all of you to think about that. What is it that makes you want to wake up every morning and do it? And if that's writing, cool. If it's not, I'd love to hear from you. Drop me a note, whether it be email or in the future, I'll leave a place where you can give feedback and questions and things like that. But I would really be curious to see what everyone here listening to the show, what your passions are. So that's it for this week. I'm going to sign off and hope everyone has a fantastic day. Thanks for joining me this week. If you like this episode, you'll enjoy my backlist episodes at michaelloran.com/podcast. For your free starter library of my favorite novels, join my fan club by visiting michaelloran.com/fan club. If you're a writer and you want to connect with me further, check out my YouTube channel, Author Level Up, for helpful writing advice at authorlevelup.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back next week.